Hello and welcome back to the Fantasy Playmakers. What's up, guys? In this video, I'm going to be going through my rest of season rankings at the quarterback position. While you guys are watching, if you're enjoying the content, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And then if you have any fantasy questions, you can drop them down below in the comment section and I'll make sure to get back to every single person. But let's just get started with number one, and it is going to be Lamar Jackson. Lamar is having a really nice bounce back fantasy season. We all remember his record-setting 2019 season. Then he came back in 2020 and was a fairly big disappointment. He is back on track. The passing numbers have been really solid this season. He is a complete dual threat quarterback, and I think is going to be the number one guy rest of season. At number two, it's going to be Tom Brady. Brady has been super impressive this entire season, especially when you're considering that he basically provides zero rushing upside, except for that 10 or 11 yard run he broke off on Monday night. But if you're looking at the fantasy scoring skill set, it's heavily favored towards rushing quarterbacks. Which is why you can see guys like Lamar, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Herbert, Murray, Mahomes, all these guys that are above and behind Brady have at least some sort of rushing upside. So it really just points to, the high level that he is playing at. Plus the offense is getting healthier. We saw Gronk back. It looks like AB should be back within the next few weeks, at the longest. We've got Scotty Miller returning. So this offense is really coming into its form. And if we remember back to last season, Brady was playing all right, through the first 10, 11, 12 weeks. They really hit their stride at the end of the season. I think we're going to see that here as well. I feel like, people who aren't super in tune with this Bucs offense just see them as this complete super team. It should be easy, all this stuff, but it's really not the case. I think at least 4 or 5 of Brady's interceptions have just been blatantly off the hands of receivers, total drops. We saw that on Monday night, off of Evans' hands, turns into a pick. There have also just been a ton of costly drops. So I think now with Gronk back, AB returning, this offense is just going to be firing on all cylinders, and Brady is going to be a high-end QB1 rest of the season. Then at number 3, I have Josh Allen. He definitely hasn't been super consistent this season, but is still putting up top-tier fantasy numbers. After him, I have Jalen Hurts here at number 4, and I will totally admit that I've been lower on Jalen Hurts basically the entire offseason and the entire season so far than I probably should have been, and from what he's been performing at. But I will say that every time I ranked him low, I kind of gave, this overall saying where I'd be like, here's the thing. Jalen Hurts has a crazy high ceiling. Before the season, I said Jalen Hurts could be the number 1 overall fantasy quarterback, or he could no longer be a starting quarterback by the end of the season. That's how wide his range of outcomes is. And then I remember, in my rest of season rankings earlier on, week 4, week 8, I still ranked him somewhat low just because, his points really weren't matching how good he was actually playing as an NFL quarterback. But at this point in the season, I don't think it matters. Obviously, he's a much better fantasy option than he is real-life quarterback. No one thinks he's a top 4 NFL quarterback. No one probably thinks he's even a top 10 NFL quarterback. But at this point in the season, I think there is no risk of him getting benched. He is going to ride out this season as the QB1 for the Eagles. And while he's doing it, he provides insane rushing upside, which is going to continue to carry his fantasy production. So Jalen Hurts, solid high-end QB1. Then at number 5, I'm going to be going with Justin Herbert. He's definitely had his ups and downs as well, but he's a guy who also has a very high ceiling. He's kind of similar to Josh Allen so far, playing very well, has a little bit of rushing upside, a little bit inconsistent. Offense has looked out of sync at certain points, but you just have to look at that Steelers game. The upside is totally there. He has the weapons around him with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. You've got a solid, tight end room with some depth. Austin Eckler as a check down option out of the backfield. So I think he's a solid mid-tier option. At number 6, we've got Kyler Murray. And, this may seem a little bit low. He's got a bye here in week 12. He's missed the last 3 weeks, I believe. I'd expect him to be back in week 13. And the only issue here is that Kyler Murray is someone who relies heavily on his movement. So dealing with an ankle injury is definitely something that is not ideal. If we remember last season, Kyler was having a top tier start to the season, on pace to break Lamar Jackson's records at quarterback for fantasy points, and then he suffered a shoulder injury. His rushing just totally went down. he stopped taking off, and it greatly hurt his fantasy production. Obviously, this is an ankle injury, not a shoulder, but I feel like it could definitely have the same effect. He already wasn't rushing as much as he was last season, which was hurting his overall fantasy value. But I'm saying all that, and I'm still ranking him as number 6. So obviously, I still really like him as a fantasy option. I just don't know if he has like that top tier upside of a guy like Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen or the guys I have ranked above them. At number 7, I have Patrick Holmes. Very disappointing season so far for Mahomes. The offense has just not clicked. It looked like it was coming together against the Raiders. Everyone was all hyped about it. I was kind of a little bit more cautious. Like, let's see this for a few more weeks. Then they look bad against the Cowboys. Kind of just what it's going to be. He's going to have the volume, and he's going to have those massive games, but he's not going to have, the same probably quarterback one finish that we may have expected, coming into the season. Another guy who's been struggling a little bit, Matthew Stafford here at number 8. He had a really hot start and has definitely cooled off, but I do think this Rams offense is very talented. Coming off the bye week, they should have some bounce back. You've got Odell there kind of replacing Robert Woods in that role. So I think Matthew Stafford will have a very solid finish to the season. Kind of in the same boat here, Dak Prescott. Dak has the weapons around him. The only issue is the Cowboys just rely so heavily on the run game, and the defense is so much better that he hasn't had the passing volume that a lot of people expected, including myself, coming into the season. So, more of a solid, back-end QB1 play. At number 10, it's Aaron Rodgers, dealing with that toe injury, but he's just going to continue to produce. He's another guy who doesn't have the passing volume. Last season, he had great fantasy production, but a lot of that came from touchdown upside. He hasn't had that same kind of look this season, but is still playing well as a quarterback 1. At number 11, Kirk Cousins, really just all reliable at the quarterback position. You can always count on him to be like a fringe quarterback 1 by the end of the season. That's what he's done. He has stud weapons around him and should just continue to produce at a very consistent level. Then breaking into the top 12, Cam Newton. For as long as he's the quarterback 1, I think he's going to be a QB1 on a weekly basis. And I honestly think he could hold on to this job through the end of the season. I mean, if you're looking at Sam Darnold, are they really rushing Sam Darnold back to replace Cam Newton? I don't think so. Darnold has looked terrible. Cam Newton, has at least looked better than Sam Darnold did the last few weeks as a starter. And he has the fantasy rushing upside, which is what we're looking for. I mentioned earlier in the video, if you're looking at almost all the top tier quarterbacks, Lamar, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, they have that rushing ability. Cam Newton has it. He's probably more up there in the Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts range. He's got more rushing upside than guys like Josh Allen or Justin Herbert. We've seen that in his first 2 games with the Panthers, and you may not feel great because he's not a great NFL quarterback, but I feel like it's kind of the same feeling with Jalen Hurts. As long as he has the opportunity, the production is going to be there. And right now, he does have the opportunity. Falling outside of the top 12 is Russell Wilson. This one was tough because, if he was healthy, he would be in that argument with, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott in that range. We just haven't seen it come together after his finger injury, so I don't think I can rank him any higher at this point, but is someone that I would expect to be coming around back to his normal form in time for the playoffs. After Russ at 14, I have Joe Burrow. Hasn't had the overall volume that I was expecting out of this Cincinnati Bengals offense. They've been very reliant on the run game, which has served them well. But I still think, he's a fringe QB1, solid weekly start. I feel like this is kind of where we start to fall off at the QB position. I went with Tua. He's played fairly well to start off the season. Nothing crazy, not a super high ceiling, but someone who could be like a fringe start every single week. At 16, I have Ryan Tannehill, who has been wildly disappointing since Derrick Henry went down. He really hadn't been producing well early in the season, but the wheels have just totally fallen off the last few weeks. Tons of interceptions. The volume has not helped his fantasy production. So Tannehill, I don't really think you can feel confident starting him moving forward. It's going to be Carson Wentz following up after Ryan Tannehill. Someone who doesn't have a huge ceiling, but doesn't have a super low floor. Another one of these guys who you may want to plug in if your starting quarterback is on bye. Then at number 18, I have Derek Carr, who's totally fallen off the last few weeks. Really, the weapons aren't there for him. The offense as a whole has not been playing well. So that's why he comes in as more of a mid-tier quarterback 2 option. At number 19, I have Matt Ryan. Also has not been playing well. It's not even really his fault. The offensive line is bad. The weapons are bad with Calvin Ridley out. So it's really just been a tough overall situation for him this season. And then to round out the top 20, this one could have been given to a few guys. I actually had Daniel Jones ranked here before that just Monday Night Football disaster. Maybe firing Jason Garrett kind of sparked something, but you just can't trust Daniel Jones. So I kind of debated between Bridgewater, Mac Jones, and Taylor Heineke, and I ended up just going with a guy who I thought had the most upside, and that was Taylor Heineke, because he actually has been put in the position to just kind of let it rip and go out and win games, which is not something you can say about Mac Jones or Teddy Bridgewater. So Heineke is going to round out these rankings. If you want a more consistent option, then sure, Mac Jones or Teddy Bridgewater would probably be your guy, but I ended up going with Heineke just for that upside. But that is going to wrap it up for this video. Go check out my other rest of season rankings. They're all going to be posted today. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section. Any comments on my rankings? What guys do you think should be higher, lower? Let me know down below. But thank you guys again for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.